Hey guys, today I am recording my July wrap up, and I am happy to say that my reading has definitely improved from the last couple months because I read 5 things, which is such an improvement. I'm so happy with that number, and I am just really happy to share with you the books that I did read in the month. And also, I will be discussing my August TBR. The first thing I completed was 10,000 Skies Above You by Claudia Gray, which is the second book in the Firebird trilogy, and I again rated it 5 stars. Again, it was just very easy to understand with the whole time travel aspect. It was not info dumpy at all. It just kept my interest very well. I really forgot how much I liked this series after being away from it for so long. And it had a cliffhanger like I'm not okay. The next book that I read was The Vault of Dreamers by Kara M. O'Brien, and I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. Rosie was the main character, was an interesting point of view to read from, and I feel like the concept was cool, but in my opinion, it was a lot of filler. It wasn't exactly a boring book, but it just wasn't very captivating. And also, there was kind of a cliffhanger at the end, which I didn't like because it wasn't one of those cliffhangers where it's like, oh, someone died, oh no. It was like one of those cliffhangers where it's like, oh no, how are we ever going to get out of this situation? Like, it's just too far gone, like, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like all involved. And I'm not sure if I want to read a whole another book of this series and get invested into it. I read this during the last bout of Cramathon. The next book that I read was also a book that I read for the last bout of Cramathon, and that was Messenger by Lois Lowry, and this is the third book in the Giver Quartet, and I ended up rating this 4 stars. It was actually a pleasant surprise. I didn't really expect to enjoy it, but I actually really did. It was really interesting to get an insight on some of the characters in the past books of the Giver Quartet. And the only complaint that I have about this book is that I wish there was a little bit more at the end. Like, you can kind of infer what happens, but I would just like maybe a chapter more. Then I read The Long Walk by Stephen King, which is a short story, and I started this for Cramathon, but unfortunately I didn't finish it before the end of Cramathon, but I did finish it within the month. I rated it 3 stars. It was an interesting story to read, but unfortunately there were a couple problems that I had with it that prevented me from enjoying it to its full potential. The first thing is that the reason why The Long Walk was never explained, which made it really hard for me to connect with the characters because they pretty much all volunteered for it. So it's like, okay, like you did this to yourself, so why should I feel bad for you? And another thing that I was really bothered by was the ending because it was very abrupt and really retarded. Honestly, it's like if you're gonna make a 150 page long short story, which is pretty long for like a short story, you might as well add that much more onto it to like actually flesh out the ending. And the final book that I read this month was Ensnared by A.G. Howard, which is technically the final book in the series, the Splintered series, but there is a companion novel. But this is technically the end of the series. Anyway, I rated this 4 stars. I had trouble reading it in the beginning, I will admit. It wasn't exactly boring, but it wasn't interesting either. But it did pick up by the middle, and especially at the end. I'm actually really satisfied with how this series turned out. And as I was finishing the book in the last few pages, I actually found myself feeling really sad that I won't be reading any more books with these characters in them. Now, for my August TBR, I am not definitely sure what I want to read, but I do have 4 books picked out. The first book that I have is Passenger by Alexandra Bracken, because I wanted to read this since it came out, ever since I saw the description of it on Goodreads. I was like, oh, I want to read that. And that was like almost 2 years ago, probably. And it just feels like a summary type of book to me because it's all about time travel and whatever. So it seems like a book that would fit well in the summertime. The second book that I picked out was Sun by Lois Lowry, which is the final book in the Giver Quartet, just because I read Messenger last month. I mean, might as well finish up the series and read the final book. I also picked out Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I don't know why, like, just because I remember thinking about the book one day, like, oh, maybe I should read that soon. So I picked it out. Don't know if I will read it for sure or not, but just as a reference. And the final book I have set on my TBR for August is Jackie Robinson, a biography, just because it's on my summer reading list and I have to do an essay for it. So that is pretty much it for this video. So I will see you next time. Bye!